Tonight we're going to have a chat about the need when you're planning a trip through the Victorian High Country. Is there a need for carrying extra fuel like jerry cans and those sort of things? So we're going to have a good chat about this tonight. Now, this is a topic that is rolling around social media quite a fair bit at the moment. So I thought, well, let's have a yarn about it because, borders are back open again. Lots of people are starting to travel and people are coming down from, whether you're localised or coming down from interstate, coming down maybe for that first big trip, Vic High Country. And there's a lot of questions being asked around that fuel situation where they've got to carry extra jerry cans and all this sort of stuff. Now, what I've done here, I've actually pulled one of the questions off that rolled around on Facebook only just a few days ago. And I thought this was a good one. And this is why we're going to have a good chat about this one. And this guy's question was, he's heading over for a 2-week trip. He's coming across from South Australia. He wants to explore as many tracks as he can and take on as much as he can possibly see. Are jerry cans needed or is diesel easy to get? I don't really want to carry jerry cans unless it's really needed. He's got 140 litres on board before he even starts. So that's fantastic. The amount of fuel this guy's able to carry before he even starts. And he's asking those sort of questions. And it's great people asking these sort of things when they're coming down here. And this guy, as I say, he's got 140 litres from standard. So, or maybe he's got, aftermarket tanks or something going on there, long range tanks. But that's a fair bit of fuel he's going to be starting out with. So we're going to have a good chat about this. So, look, one thing I certainly want to touch on straight away when you're carrying extra fuel, particularly in jerry cans, petrol or diesel, whatever it is, it can be very dangerous. So, you've got to make sure wherever you're going to carry these jerry cans, you've got to make sure they're extremely well secured. Wherever you're going to carry them on the back of your full drive or on a roof or whatever like that. Actually, I think it's actually illegal to carry petrol in the back of on a jerry can on the back of your full drive. So make sure you check on that one if you're carrying petrol, but not ideal anyway because petrol's a bit more flammable than what diesel is. And I'm pretty sure there is a legality issue there with carrying petrol and jerry cans on the back of full drive. So just check on that one too. But you certainly see diesel on backs of full drives and certainly up on the roof rack is certainly another good place to put them and wherever else, you guys might like to store them. So firstly, there's one thing we're going to sort of talk about this is how much fuel you need to carry. Well, first thing is a few things you've got to probably ask yourself first. And one is, how many tracks, when you're planning out your trip, how many Ks do you think you're going to do over your trip, when you're coming down here, how many Ks of full drive tracks are you planning to drive? You've got to have a rough idea. You're not going to work it out to the exact kilometre, but it's always a good idea to have a rough idea on how many Ks you're going to drive, then give you a bit of idea on how much fuel you're going to use. Now, that's when I'm planning out any sort of a trip, I know my Patrol, it gets about mid to high 12 litres per 100 when I'm cruising up down the highway, which is not bad range when I'm cruising up the highway. But if I was going to go out on a full drive trip for a lengthy period of time, I'd be sort of starting to look at maybe working my fuel range out about 15 to 16 litres per 100 over full drive tracks because, when you're travelling in low range, your engine's revving a lot harder than what it would be when you're cruising up down the highway. So you're certainly going to use a lot more fuel. So that's how I'd be sort of looking at the difference between cruising up the highway, mid to high 12s, and out in the full drive tracks, I'll be sort of looking at around sort of that 15 to 16 litres per 100 to work out how much fuel I've got to take and whether I need to actually carry extra because, look, my Patrol, it comes out as standard with 120 litres on board. So that's a fair bit of fuel I've got. And I rarely carry jerry cans in the high country for that reason because I am starting out with 120 before I even get going. So, that's certainly something I've take into account. But look, if you've got a full drive, it's got, say, 100 litres or less, well, I'd be taking a jerry can every day of the week as a spare, as a backup. Look, you just never know. You might use a lot more and you'd probably rather have plenty than to go looking for it if your fuel range is sort of under that 100 litres in your vehicle before you even get started. But so, yeah, definitely would take a jerry can if I had that sort of size tanks. But anything over and above that, look, 100 to 120 like what I've got, yeah, look, I might think about it, but generally I don't carry a jerry can when you've got that sort of range. But as soon as you get over 120 litres like this guy, as we're talking about here tonight, with 140, well, I wouldn't be carrying jerry can with fuel in it. I would probably bring a jerry can empty And just take that with you. And just the off chance, you might want to go off somewhere else and you're going to be, out of towns for a while. So good to maybe take a jerry can then, but it's about the only time. And bring an empty jerry can. They weigh nothing sitting up on your roof and no dramas at all. But if you're going to put, carry one around when you really don't need to, 20 litres of fuel, what's that, about 20, 30 odd litres on your vehicle that you probably don't really need to carry. So that's how I'd be certainly starting to look at it now. I don't know how some of you guys, what sort of fuel range you guys have got, even if you're taking jerry cans on any of these long distance trips. So that's how I look at it there. So you're 40 over 100. We covered all that sort of stuff. 140 litres, the guy's question, that's one's there. But the thing is, you're getting to this next page here. The thing with carrying fuel now, if you're doing a trip anywhere through the high country, now a lot of the towns around the Victorian high country have got fuel covered. Now you've got everywhere from Mansfield, Locola, Dargo, right across to Omeo, and then Bright and Myrtleford and those other towns in and around there. They've all got plenty of fuel. So as far as petrol and diesel goes, that is. Now, if your four drives one of these dual fuel arrangements where you got gas on board as well, that can be a little bit tricky, because I know Locola and Dargo certainly don't have gas as an option there for filling up gas tanks in four drives. I'm not even sure about Omeo even. They might have in that survey. I've not really checked, but diesel and petrol is in plentiful supply in any of those towns that I've just mentioned. And you can always plan your trip where you've got to duck out to a town. If you're doing a trip from, say, Mansfield across a Dargo or something like that, you get up on a Howard High plane up there, and you can always duck down Locola, and go to the general store down there and get refuel up down there. It's only an hour or so to go down there, and you can certainly refuel and then get all the way through, your Dargos and those sort of things. Well, they're certainly going to have plenty of fuel there. If you're over and above those ranges I'm talking about, where you don't really have to carry that extra fuel, but say anything under 100 litres, I'd be taking a jerry can of extra fuel just in case for those times. So what do you guys do? So here we go. CRJ Sierra in there. How you going there, mate? You carry 2 jerry cans of diesel. I got a trip this week to Ceduna, right over in WA. I've got 1,500 kilometres of fuel range in your Land Cruiser. Far out. That's a good range of fuel you got going on there. 10 litres per 100, mate. That's wicked economy you got going out of that. And out of mine, with my 120 litres out on the highway, that is, I get around about 850, bit over, maybe 850, 860 Ks out of all my tanks. So, or out of all my fuel. So that's sort of bad range I'm out on the highway, but it's a totally different ball game, when you're out there full driving, just because of those low range times when you're driving full drive tracks and your engine scream a lot harder than it would be. So you've got to certainly make a bit more adjustment to your fuel and how much you've got to carry and work it all out. But start off with those on how much, whether you need to carry it or not. And so, with my range, I don't normally carry jerry cans. And this guy that I've certainly answered his question on social media through the week, and I recommend to him to no need to be carrying extra fuel in jerry cans when he's got 140 litres on board to start with. That's absolutely stacks and, plenty to get you through to one of those towns if you really, really need to duck out and check them out. Now, where it gets a little bit tricky with fuel range in the high country is we're about to chat about this one. Time when you've really got a plan for your fuel. What we've talked about is anywhere west of Omeo is all covered by those towns, No worries with getting fuel in pretty much all of those towns and ducking out to any of those places. But where it starts to get tricky, where you got to start planning your fuel, as soon as you start going east of Omeo and further, that's when you really got to have a look at fuel supplies, because once you leave Omeo and you're, say, heading for end of your trip around that Tom Grogan area, you might leave Omeo and head out through Banamba and go to Native Dog Flat maybe for a night or two there, and then up on Davies Plain and have a look up around there, and then down to the Murray River and do Mount Pinnabar and some other tracks up around that area there, and then finish your trip up at Tom Grogan. Well, you could use, you're going to use a lot of fuel in that sort of trip, just a trip like that, because it's a lot of hilly stuff, steep stuff. So your engine's going to be working pretty hard. You're going to go through a lot of fuel in a trip like that. But where it gets the problem is when your trip finishes there at Tom Grogan, when you hit the bitumen. Now, if you're going to turn right and you're going to head towards New South Wales and towards Jindabyne, well, you're at least a couple of hours to get the fuel once you finish at Tom Grogan to go to Jindabyne. So a couple of hours there. So you wouldn't want to be, down under sort of around that core of a tank range, and you start to roll out of there and then hope you're going to get to Jindabyne because you might not make it. So this is where you may need to carry a jerry can. Now, I certainly probably would chuck one, even with my 120 litres on board. I'd probably chuck a jerry can in just for that time where I just may need it. In a trip like that, when I'm going further east of Omeo now, and then when if you're going to turn left and head towards Cancoban and back to Albury and Hume Highway that way, well, Cancoban is your next fuel stop going that way, and that's sort of about the same sort of range, hour and a half, hour sort of thing to get down to Cancoban. So you wouldn't want to be certainly light on fuel finishing the trip at Tom Grogan and then got to try and make it to one of those towns or to get to a service station. So a couple of things there to think about. Anywhere sort of, west of Omeo, mate, there's stacks of fuel options if you've got to get out, if you run a bit short. No worries anywhere there. But as soon as you start going east of Omeo, it's a whole different ball game. And you really do need to take your fuel range into account going into those areas, because you wouldn't want to be running out of fuel out there. Not a good idea, not good place to be in to be running out of fuel. Mark, how you going there, mate? Good to see you on here tonight. Jason, I always fill up my tank in Mansfield, 120 litres. Yeah, look, you're always going to fill up chock-a-block before you go. Doesn't matter where your trip's going to start. You're going to leave Melbourne and then, head to one of these little country towns we're talking about, whether it be Lacole or Mansfield, Dargo, or anywhere like that before your trip starts. Well, you're always going to fill up before you head off. And so, so start off with full tanks and then work out, where your full driving is going to go from there and how many kilometres you're going to roughly drive on your trip to whether you think you need to chuck a jerry can in and fill it up before you leave one of those towns. So it's certainly a good one there. Ruthie's my dream trip. 90-litre tank for Stephen, but have a 20-litre jerry can in the camper trailer. Well, there we go. We're getting under that 100k, under 100 litres in your tank there. I'd certainly be looking at it, taking a jerry can every day of the week if I had anything under 100 litres travelling through the high country, and you're towing as well. So maybe going to put your camp trailer back, park that up somewhere and then travel around is probably a good idea with that, Stephen. But 9 litres and 20-litre jerry can, not a bad option. Ross, you got 140 litres, gets me to at least 750 k's off-road. Heavy going, that's pretty good going there, mate. I've actually never really done an actual kilometre range off-road to really know, but I just know that I'm sort of getting around that 850, 860 odd up and down the highway. But I really haven't checked it out in the bush, but I'd be certainly looking around sort of that 15, 16, maybe 17 litres. I'd be working it out. And I know that would give me stacks. That would give me plenty, 3 or 4 litres per 100 over and above what I'm doing out the highway would be stacked. So that's how I'd be working it out. Bush Adventures, how are you going there, mate? Are you going pretty good? Made it better late than never. That's all right, Jazz. Good to see you coming on here tonight. Stephen, even if you have LPG, say in a 80 series, you still have 85 litres of petrol and 9 litres of gas. Yeah, look, and that's right. My daughter's actually just bought herself an 80 series, and that same arrangement you're just talking about now with petrol gas. But it's which fuel do you use first? That's the thing, when you've got a petrol gas thingo, I'd probably be leaving the gas full and using your petrol all the time, because you can get petrol pretty much anywhere. So I'd be probably using the petrol all the time and leave that gas as a backup just in case, you do maybe need it somewhere. And yes, that's probably the arrangement I'd be looking at with that one. But not a bad option you got there. Leanne, good to see you on here tonight. A few of you guys, who else has got going on here? Matthew, I've 90-litre main with 50 litre sub, and I'm taking an extra 50 litres custom jerry can when I go away. Well, you got a fair bit going on there. You got 100. That's 140 litres that we're talking about there. I've got 9 litre as a main, and then I've got a 30-litre sub tank in my Patrol, and that comes as standard. But that's a stack of fuel you got going away there, mate. With your 90 and 50, 140. That's 190 litres you're taking away. So that's stacks. At least you're not going to have to worry about fuel. That is for sure. And the thing is too, if you're going to be taking jerry cans, this is another thing too. If you're going to take jerry cans away on your trip, and you're going to want to use them, and you've got a sub tank on your vehicle as well, like I have, well, empty your jerry can before you go drain your sub tank. Get rid of that jerry can, empty it as quickly as you can, rather than have it sitting around on your roof and your full drive, whatever you're going to be doing with it. Leave that sub till absolute last. Get that jerry can empty first, then you've only got an empty jerry can that's sitting on your roof, and a lot more safer that way. The only way, really, really safe way is fuel to be carrying around, and that's inside the tanks that are designed in your vehicle. So yeah, get rid of that jerry can as quickly as you can and empty that into your main tank. Just bought for new players. If by any chance of running low on fuel with group trip, fill up one car. Yeah, look, you can do that too. Fill up one car, and then sometimes you can maybe drain off another car if one's getting a bit low. You can certainly do that as well. Good to see you back on the YouTube. Thanks very much, mate. Greatly appreciate that. Good to see a lot of you guys on here tonight and having a good chat about this, because yeah, this is a pretty hot topic. The old fuel range. What people are going to do when they're coming down, particularly interstaters. And yeah, it's a good question to ask. So yeah, pretty keen to see. Good to see how some of you guys, what you guys are doing with your fuel range. Advice for someone with only 70-litre tank. Yeah, look, 70 litres is not a great deal. What sort of vehicle is that you got there, Nick, with only 70-litre tank in it? Because I'd be taking jerry cans every day of the week with a 70-litre. I don't know. You may even contemplate even chucking a second one in, but not really ideal. But yeah, I'd certainly, definitely 100% be taking extra fuel with a 7-litre tank. But again, depending where you're going to go too, and how long you're going to get away for. If you're only going to do sort of a loop around through Mount, look, no, I'd still be taking jerry can regardless. Absolutely regardless. Got a Jeep Wrangler there, 2-door. Yeah, mate. Right, I said they only come out with 7-litre tank. Yeah, mate, I'd definitely be throwing a jerry can in for sure. But just wherever you're going to put it, make sure it's nice and safe and secure, and it's not going to cause any issues in the case of accident, rollovers, all that sort of stuff we don't want to think about going to happen, but sometimes can happen. So got to be very careful where you go transporting fuel, extra fuel. Touring Tyre, how you go, mate? Travelled Brisbane to Cape in Petrol 200 series, 135 litres. No need for jerry cans, plenty of fuel. That's the same here, going up through Cape. There is a stack of options up through there for getting fuel. No worries about that. Look, I still might take one if I'm going to do the tele track and they're not through there, a bit remote there, but yeah, but still plenty of fuel options up there going through the centre up through Cape. Walking along the highway with my jerry can, at least someone always feels pity for you and offers a lift. Well, you're going to hope they're going to want to, not only going to pick you up with the empty one, but they're going to take you back with a full one, because they wouldn't want to leave you at the servo. And then you've got to walk back with a 20-litre jerry can under your arm, because they're feeding them, they're bloody heavy things. So yeah, not ideal. Run the LPG out. Run the LPG out first. Gives petrol rider more power and stuff. Okay, there's an option there from Mark. If you've got one of these dual fuel arrangements, he's saying to get rid of the petrol first and use your gas up last, or use your LPG up first. Actually, other way around. Leanne, you got 180 litres. Yeah, that's the thing with the Prado. 180 litres. That's a wicked amount of fuel that comes standard with the Toyota Prados. Amazing how much fuel they chuck in those. I don't think what that weighs when it's loaded full. It'd be an absolute truckload. Chris, how you going there, mate? When my beautiful Land Cruiser anchor will allow me, most definitely be fitting a 135-litre tank in our 221 model D-Max. And that's the other thing too. Look, when it comes to long-range tanks for the Vic High Country, there's no way known I'd be fitting. Only because I ran here a lot, I wouldn't be bothered putting long-range tanks in my vehicle for driving the high country. Well, like I said, I've done 120 to start with, but when they're empty and you're just driving around town, they can weigh pretty heavy unless you've got those plastic ones. I'm not sure what they're like, but long-range tanks are heavy, whether they're full or they're empty. So yeah, I wouldn't be fitting one for mine. But if I was going to do a lot of Central Australia stuff, well, that's when certainly you might look at throwing long-range tanks in. Far better off having long-range tanks, fuel underneath, better centre of gravity, that sort of stuff. A lot safer way of carrying fuel loads of those things rather than in jerry cans, that's for sure. Jim there got 222 litres, Simpson Desert in June. 222 litres, that's a whack of fuel, mate, you've gone through there. Most trips around Australia, not much need for long-range tanks in reality, unless you're heading out to Arnhem Land or somewhere like that. Yeah, look, absolutely, mate. They're amazing where you can get fuel these days, particularly if you're just talking the standard stuff between petrol and diesel. There is stacks of options for it. So, yeah, plenty of options going on there. Right, well, we might wrap this one up. But, yeah, that was just one I want to have a chat to. especially after I saw this guy asking that question, coming down from South Australia, and got 140 litres on board and was unsure whether he needed to bring jerry cans or not. But absolutely great question. And as I say, a lot of people now asking these sort of things because they're all wanting to travel again, and borders are opening back up, and away we're going. So they're all coming down and want to check out the mighty Victorian High Country for those first times, maybe. So yeah, there's some stuff there, then a few tips there to hopefully help you out with whether you do need to carry a jerry can or not. But make sure the safety first, and secure them well and truly in your full drive. Thanks, guys. Greatly appreciate the feedback, and everyone dropping in here tonight. Awesome stuff. Good to see you on here again. Take care, and we'll catch you very, very soon. Hooroo, guys. See you later on.